Today on the BagFather podcast, we're heading to one of the busiest and most operationally complex airports in the world, Heathrow Airport. We're joined today by Jamie Ratcliffe and Sarah Charsley to talk all things baggage, from innovation and operational resilience to passenger expectations, AI, real-time visibility, and what the future of baggage handling could look like at Heathrow. At an airport where even small improvements can have a massive operational impact, Jamie and Sarah give us inside look at how baggage operations are evolving and what comes next for one of aviation's most important hubs. Jamie, Sarah, welcome to the BagFather.
Thank you, Jen. It's nice to be here. Nice to be talking about it.
Maybe you guys each want to spend a little bit of time talking about what your current role is and what does your day-to-day look like?
I'm the Senior Product Development Manager for baggage. It's always a funny title because we don't produce anything at the end of the day, but we definitely are handling a service or a product for the passengers. My role remit is quite wide, covering the way that baggage operational costs are covered and how we reflect that back and how we represent that to the airlines. It's a key part of my role. A big part of my role has been bringing together the strategies and working with Sara to do the joint strategy for the strategic partnership with Vanderlande and DHL.
Sarah?
So I'm the Key Account Director at Vanderlande for Heathrow. So that essentially means I'm responsible for the overall kind of customer relationship. So ensuring that we build that trusted long-term partnership and that we're focused on constantly delivering or over-delivering on our commitments. So as Jamie said, my role kind of focuses on more of the strategic customer engagement. So really aligning the customer objectives with our Vanderlande extraordinary capabilities and making sure that we're providing that leadership across our design, build, operate, maintain and IT functions that form part of the strategic partnership within Vanderlande across DHL and Heathrow.
Very good. Very full days, I'd assume, for both of you, trying to figure out how to make baggage run smoother, faster, better all the time.
Yeah.
So when I think about Heathrow, and you guys are handling baggage at a scale that exceeds most airports in the world, what does baggage actually look like for you guys behind the scenes?
Well, I think it's wrong to say that we handle the most bags per day anymore. I think we might have held that crown for some time a little while ago. But I think when you look at the space available to us to do those things, we're probably one of the most intense airports in the world with regards to bags per meter squared in the sense of what we move through our airport. That provides certain challenges. It means that definitely with where we are at the moment, where we're knocking on the edges of the limits of our systems in the way that we operate, we've really got to find new and creative ways to get the most out of those systems. And some of that will be deploying technology that's caught us up. It'll be deploying things that weren't available when we built our systems. And it's finding the right way to justify the business cases to invest in those changes that allow us the space to grow and the space to operate smoothly.
So is there one technology coming through currently that you feel is going to change the landscape of baggage, really fix some of those issues?
Oh, Jen, don't limit me to one. It's that's going too far. I would say if you're talking to me about this year, I think camera vision is where it's all at for the baggage system. I think we can retrofit camera vision in a number of different ways to answer some of the daily pains and aches that we feel, where either pushing on the limits or we see the challenges of the type of bags put into our systems. But I think camera technology and incredibly clever algorithms sitting behind there is enabling us to look at what we do day to day in a different way and automate ourselves out of those pain points. If I was to look at the future, I think I can get really excited about robotics, but autonomy in the logistics space is the thing that's really going to drive our unlocking our latent capacity.
And so how many of those solutions that you're looking at are a part of what Vanderlande would provide versus ancillary systems that might be more outside of the sortation system itself?
I think we're constantly in conversation around what new technologies are available, and we are constantly doing that kind of innovative work within our innovation centres. And I think, as Jamie's mentioned, kind of robotic loading is certainly one of them. High-speed transport is another one as well, particularly looking at, as Jamie said, kind of camera vision and how we can make the day-to-day operation run more smoothly. Because I think, 20 years being at the airport, and I'm still amazed that we, process around like 100,000 departing bags a day. And we, sometimes equate it to, that's more than Twickenham Stadium has seats. So I think when we're doing that every day and we're rapidly working on a significant amount of projects, but trying to manage a live operation at the same time. And those two things have to coexist so that, you can still make sure you're bringing in those innovations, but still delivering to your customer as well. So I think the majority of the time it's, several spinning plates that are happening. So you can't take your eye off the ball just because you're kind of bringing innovation in that you kind of drop the ball on kind of delivering the service to the customers that, if they're standing around a reclaim or they're checking in, want that process to be as smooth as humanly possible. I mean, we all do when we travel through the airport. So I think kind of what we're looking at as well is how we can do that, but maintain safety, resilience, but also kind of grow that innovation to fix those niggly problems that we see within the systems, because every day is different, but there are some things that we know that we can still improve on, and we're not really looking at the moment, I think, for that all that low-hanging fruit, because we've done a considerable amount of work already. So this is all really those incremental gains that are really just tightening up that process to make sure that bags get from A to B in as quick as time as possible, so that when the passengers board their planes, the bags are with them, and when they get off the other side, it's a seamless journey.
Very good. And you're talking a lot about the passenger experience, but that's not the only stakeholder you guys have to answer to. Of course, you have all the airlines that are flying in and out of Heathrow. What does that mix look like? I mean, how much are you guys focusing on the passenger trends versus what the airlines are asking? Is that ever in conflict, or is it, answering the same mail?
I think we're right at the point. So if I take us on a little bit of a journey back in time, the world changed for Heathrow. The operation changed. Everything changed with T5 coming online. That was the biggest operational change that we've seen, lifting and shifting the whole of BA's operation spread out across the airport into one place, but also adopting certain principles, adjacency, connectivity, new technologies, other bits and pieces. That was 2008. That is ages ago. Now we've moved on, but holding on to some of those brilliant principles, bow down to the architects of it because they were so well thought through. We really are surviving today based on those principles. But all of those things go hand in hand with that relationship with the airline. We have to be integrated in the way that we're talking about it and thinking about it. And more so now, yes, we've delivered T3 and T3IB, which we show off regularly. But again, it doesn't feel new to us. It's 2014 and we're coming, over 10 years on now. But we're still very proud of what those things do. But all of those things only survive if we have buy-in from our airlines and their handlers. They have to be there as part of that. And I think bringing us right up to now, the next frontier really is that edge of the system. So when we start to talk about camera vision, when we start to talk about robotics, and when we start to talk about autonomy, which are well-trodden topics in this industry now. For one, we've been hand in hand with Vanderlande in delivering robots in T3IB. We've seen the successes and the failures of those. And we're, very open to talking about all of those kind of things. But we go next into the edges of the system, and that next frontier is really where the handler sits today, and changing that world. So we can't do it without our airlines, so we can't do it without their handlers. We haven't got the space to make a mistake, so we have to do it right, and that's together.
Absolutely. And thinking about some of what you just talked about, unions, baggage worker unions, how much of that affects what you guys can bring forward for technological advances?
Hugely. The unions have to be bought in. And I would say in general, we've got a really supportive number of unions operating in the handler space today at Heathrow. Principally, of course, they fight for their members and they fight for their members' interests. But fundamentally, they're also there fighting for us in enhancing safety, in improving working conditions for people, in doing those things. And I think what's nice is when you start to automate, you then start to leverage those benefits and that understanding about making baggage a more sustainable place for people to be. The physical load that we put on people today, not just at Heathrow, across the world doing baggage handling, it's moving at a pace that it's never seen before, and it hasn't changed alongside other industries outside which have automated away from that heavy lifting. If you look at other industries, you only need to look at building industries and other bits and pieces. A lot of that manual handling has simply moved on. It's been replaced with really clever solutions. Baggage handling outside of those systems, and it's wrong to say that we haven't automated because we've done a lot of that, but the outside of those systems hasn't changed a great deal. So I mean, I'm really proud of the work. Sarah can talk more about the unions within Vanderlande, but with the work that we do with the airlines, their handlers, and the subsequent unions, in general we get great support. And I think what's nice about where our strategies are crystallizing is it isn't automating away from a human in the environment. That's simply not a thing. I'm not aware of anyone innovating in the space of a robot opening a ULD and closing one. A robot, and there's some really clever stuff out there. You look at Origo, you look at all these companies doing moving ULDs on and off. But the vast majority are looking at automation that relies on a human facilitating and doing those bits at either end, or at least supervising that more automated environment. And I think we then come back to who are the handlers of the future going to be? If I think about my two children, do I want to encourage them into today's environment to be a baggage handler? Probably not, if I'm being honest. Do I want to encourage them into an environment where they will be a conductor of a number of robots in an area, running a highly productive operation with digital tooling around them and really looking after customer service and everything like that? Then yes, absolutely. So, I think the unions can see that, to come back to what you asked. The unions can see that we have to move to make the business continue to succeed. We then need to also move to be able to recruit for the future.
And
That's a great point.
I couldn't agree more with what Jamie's saying. And I think working with the unions, I think a lot of the time, I think people expect it to just be consistently combative, and it just isn't the case. It's actually very collaborative, making sure that you've got those avenues of conversation open, and particularly around the topic of safety, because the guys and girls that we work with in the union space are usually kind of come from frontline operations. So they have all the good ideas. They know how to make things better. They know how to look after each other. That community is one that's so close-knit and tight that I think that's sometimes what's the special sauce that kind of makes an airport function as well. It's just how everybody comes together. So I think it's vital that we're part of the conversation and they're part of the conversation as well. And I think, as Jamie said, this is not about kind of eroding anything. This is about enhancing and making that progress, rather than kind of, we don't want to be the kind of companies that send people home and they get to retirement age and they can't lift their grandchildren or enjoy a full life because, they can't move, or, their back hurts, their neck hurts, their legs hurt. That's not what we're here to do. This is to make sure that people are safe and that the operation is protecting them against that as well. So I think when we're talking about innovation, Jamie raises a really good point about just the sheer volume of bags that are lifted every day at an airport is absolutely astounding. And when you kind of stand back and think about that statistic as well, you should feel some kind of incumbent moral duty to think, well, I'm in a position where I can do something to improve that, so why would we not? All the other stuff is great. We love the innovation and all the kind of AI and all those jazzy kind of bits as well. But when we're talking about making a difference, this is where I think we can make a real difference.
For the workers in general, right? Just a safer operations. So in the last 5 years or so, I feel the passenger journey has become more focused on the baggage experience. How much has that changed how Heathrow is processing baggage? I mean, does that speak louder than your ground handlers or the airlines in terms of what you need to provide to be, the airport of choice for London?
Well, I can't go to talk about the last 5 years without saying that Sarah was sitting in the chair owning baggage performance pre-COVID, and we were at record levels of performance. It's been a tough few years, and I think that first few years out of the pandemic obviously caused a lot of scrutiny on where were the bags and what was happening with them. In general, that was about capacity, not about, for us anyway, it was not about process failure. And that capacity was about people on flights or enough staff to serve those flights. And so actually those bags weren't lost. Where the service levels could be improved was about the communication with the passenger. And again, a well-trodden topic on how to communicate with the passenger with a happy path of baggage service and also an unhappy path. And I think in that unhappy path, there are certain risks. There are risks in stepping too far, having too much information, which then disrupts what would be a normal passenger journey. I used the example the other day that if I were to get onto a flight sat next to my wife and I got a message on my phone saying, "Congratulations, your bag is on board." If my wife got a negative message or even no message, well, there's two people not going to enjoy that flight at the very least,
Yes.
if not the aircrew. And so understanding what the right point to interact, but I think messaging to the passenger then brings me on to that topic of when is the passenger a customer of the airline and when are they a customer of the airport? My belief is whilst there is messaging to improve from the airport, for the majority of the passenger journey, they want to manage one app, one communication, have one stakeholder to interact with. And that's probably the airline for most of that stuff. Maybe not wayfinding at the airport, but other than that. So am I encouraging our airlines to use the messaging that we give them, the data that we give them to communicate with the passengers? Absolutely. Am I counseling a little bit of caution around how far to go with that communication and how familiar? And that's not to hold things back from passengers. It's really to say there's a right time to give people good and bad news. And the point at which you give them bad news is the point at which you tell them what you've done to solve it.
I think as well, there's, when you put yourself in the shoes as a passenger as well, which we all are a lot of the time, it's you kind of map your journey out. So you're looking at like surface access. I just want to be able to get to a car park, get on a bus or get on the pod and get into the terminal as quick as I can. I want the check-in process to be seamless. I want no queue at security. I want to get to airside and I want to have a choice of restaurants and some, nice place to drink or shop. And then the other thing that always kind of comes out as well, and it's, quite predominant in consumer insights, is I want my bag to travel with me. So nobody sits there saying, oh, I'm okay if I've got a nice glass of champagne and somewhere to shop. But if, like Jamie said, if somebody gets a message that says your bag is not on the plane, that I think is the impact that it can have. And I think us within baggage, it's always important to us, and kind of one of our ambitious mottos is every passenger, every bag, every time. And that's the mentality that we have. We do not want to see one bag miss going through the baggage system. We all take a personal responsibility when that happens for whatever reason that it doesn't make it. And I think that that's where we have kind of that good kind of partnership and relationship. We will look at it holistically. So it's not, oh, it was a handler issue, an airline issue, a messaging issue, or, a baggage system issue. We just want to know why it missed and what can we do to fix it for the next time, so that the next passenger that comes through, they do get, their bag on the plane and they're, off sunning themselves or on their business meeting, or, God forbid, they're going to their wedding and their wedding dress doesn't make it. So that's, the ambition for us is always every passenger, every bag, every time. And it's baggage is important to us.
Absolutely. And I think we have a tendency to think about air travel in terms of we're going on vacation, and that just isn't the case so often. We're traveling to see sick family members or, sad occasions, or the very happy occasions that you need key pieces of your baggage with you for that. So you mentioned some about data that you're collecting. Can you guys talk a little bit about how much of that is in real time? And I'd also be interested to hear how much of that is really about baggage operations and how much of it contributes to the overall operations of the airport.
I mean, we are definitely data rich, and we're striving to be richer. It's hard to say that we've got gaps still, but we do. There are definitely data sharing gaps where We would want to get more from the airline systems, and I know that they definitely would like to get more from ours. But data is as live as it can be, and in the moment as it can be. You only need to walk into our control rooms at Heathrow, whether it's the airport control room or for us, of course, selfishly, the baggage control room, and you see it on the screens, driving interventions and changes in operational tactics and all of those things live and in the moment. The guys are responding to dashboards, they're feeding into performance conversations in the moment. It structures wash-ups that we do. And it really is just pervasive in everything that we do. But with that comes a hunger to do more and be better. And we really are looking at the next steps of that. A great example is one of the it's hard to call it a trial anymore, Sarah, but one of the trials that Vanderlande have been doing for us with condition-based maintenance. Attaching sensors where our systems are of an age that they don't do it organically. Those sensors, the low-hanging fruit that we've been able to harvest from that has been immense. It's had a huge positive impact in T3 and across some of the other terminals already. But what we're starting to do is start to see Vanderlande be able to make decisions about the when of intervention, as opposed to the just after something's happened.
No, I'm sorry, I was just going to say, but kind of building on that, and I think that's where we're looking at that innovation, isn't it? So when you're looking at kind of condition-based monitoring, if you like, whether you're using vibration or heat and those kind of things, the data will tell us before a technician will kind of tell us, happen to walk past or hear it or see it. And I think the prompts that gives us, as Jamie said, means that we can do things proactively, which means we see less downtime of the system because we get to choose when we take that part of the system out of service to work on it, and we're not kind of blindsided by a failure. And I think having the data that we've got, as Jamie said, we're incredibly data rich, but it's how we turn that data into insights and then from insights into action. Because it's great having all this information, kind of 50 to 100 different data points per bag that travels through the system, but it's the so what of it. And when you're looking, sometimes it can be a bit of a needle in a haystack, but another phrase, I feel like this is going to be like a catchphrase now, but we do talk about kind of one version of the truth. So we all have to kind of align behind that one version of the truth. And it's not the different interpretations of it. That's why we have kind of specialists within our analytics team. We have people in the control room. So we're not just looking at that data for data's sake. We're overlaying that operational insight onto it as well. So the data could tell us one thing, but have some gaps in it. But we've got some smart people like in our control room that says, well, I can tell you exactly what happened there.
Yeah, we have our misconnect rate. As much as that focuses on the negative, we should look at a loaded bag rate. We focus on a misconnect rate, but that is a regulated community reputational measure. And that means that we talk amongst the partnership with Vanderlande and DHL, but also direct to the airlines, daily, weekly, monthly, about exactly those same things, looking for areas of opportunity, looking to learn from things that have gone wrong, but also looking to say, are we headed in the right direction? Are we investing in the right things? And so that is the bit that ties us all together. There are no excuses in that space. Sarah and her team, when she was with Heathrow, were huge parts of defining how we have those things. And we rest on that today. We continue to use that in a really healthy way to have open, honest conversations with the community, with the partnership, about where we need to be better tomorrow.
I think that's, again, Jamie makes a brilliant point, and it's a lot about with the partnership is the what we do. But I think the unsung hero is kind of the how we do it. So kind of, turning the partnership on, if you like, from 2020 doesn't immediately say, okay, and because it's a strategic partnership underpinned with certain behaviours that we're expecting, it means it's going to happen. That takes years of dedication and attention to make sure that we are able to start from a position of trust and respect, and we're open and we're honest and we're transparent, because you have to build the trust in order for it to be transparent. But I think we certainly get much further along in the journey of making every journey better just by having those conversations and having that constructive challenge. And I think it comes again with the people that are in baggage are usually in baggage for a very, very long time. So you build those relationships, and they're just really deep relationships founded on respect and trust. And I would go so far as to say it's a great friendship as well. And I think when you challenge constructively and you're able to hold each other to account to achieve the best outcomes, that's only going to be beneficial for our airlines and our handlers and our passengers that choose to travel through Heathrow Airport.
And so when I think about airports, and I mean, really, you guys are a lot competing for the same passengers, especially if there's another airport in your general area. But how much are you guys really collaborating with other airports to learn what their successes or failures are, or how you could improve on something that they've tried to accomplish?
We are doing that
yeah.
constantly, I'm pleased to say, Jen, and particularly with Vanderlande being a global company. Myself, I have fellow key account directors in Schiphol, Istanbul, Jeddah. So we've got a kind of a community of conversation that happens. We also go on kind of airport visits together as well to kind of look at the latest innovation that perhaps is happening in China, as an example, and over in the Middle East as well. So we're not geographically focused only on Heathrow. We're about bringing the best of what the globe has to offer to Heathrow. And we also innovate some really fantastic stuff at Heathrow that I'm sure will be used in other airports globally as well. So it's absolutely knowledge sharing. And I think to kind of isolate yourself from that would be foolish. And I think the constant kind of conversations, whether it be with my account director partners or within Heathrow and their own kind of visits, but equally people are really desperate to come to Heathrow as well, because we hold Heathrow up on a pedestal as being, as Jamie said, fantastic with the innovation that we saw with T5 and then the, enhancement in innovation with the robotics in T3. People still kind of want to come and see that, 10, 15, 20 years later.
I think for us, Jen, airport to airport, we benefit from everything that Vanderlande and DHL bring globally. It was one of the reasons we chose them for the strategic partnership, and one of the commitments they made as we signed up together. As airports, you'll know that we're connected to Schiphol, Brussels, Oslo, and Incheon through the Boost group. That's been eye-opening for us. I think it's easy for us as an airport to think that we know the best. And once you start really sharing, and you have to push the comfort levels, once you start to really start sharing stuff with other airports and really pushing the conversation into those difficult topics, you really start to understand that you're not alone in your problems. Every airport in the world suffers from similar problems. Mm-hmm. The scale which you have them at, the frequency, that might be the change. In Europe, it will be labour shortages, or labour costs, I should say. In the Middle East, less so. So the drive to do certain things is at a different pace, but there's an inevitability about the direction that they're going. Our sharing and our ability to have those really open conversations. And I'll say this, we're not competing for bags. I'll be honest, I don't mind if another airport has more bags than us. It's fine. We're happy to compete for passengers and give them that service, but baggage really isn't a service, it's a basic expectation. It's an accountability that when someone hands something to you, you give it back to them. And you give it back to them when they want it. So that basic expectation, I think, removes us from some of the difficulties around potentially collaborating more in the commercial or the competitive space. It removes it for us. It gives us an open door to say, oh my word, have you tried this? What happened? Oh, actually, well, if we've learned all of this at Heathrow and we share that, that's us starting to try to be a better customer for the industry. Because I'll be honest, we're not that easy. We're really not easy as an airport to deal with. We're incredibly busy, as you said. We very rarely take a day off, never. And so finding space and time to innovate, to change, to do things, the value of learning about those things from somewhere else, especially if you've been lucky enough to input into the requirements of whatever trial or test is being done, you can save yourself a huge amount of time and money just by accepting that those outputs are good enough for you. And it's starting to, I think, to benefit, because then it's one voice amongst 5 airports being clearer back to the industry, as opposed to potentially what's been done in the past, which is bespoke solutions for each airport, which does not drive efficiency into the industry.
I agree. It feels like the last 10 years or so, there's been better collaboration amongst airports who are no longer so afraid to talk about what solutions they're using and willing to talk more openly about where their failures or their successes have been. And that it's great to see. And I really appreciate everybody in leadership that's willing to be a part of those conversations.
No, it's good fun as well.
Yeah, I could imagine. And every airport has its own unique challenges based on where your location is. And maybe that's getting a bunch of car seats or bikes or golf clubs. So always something different at every airport that needs to be considered. So we've talked a little bit about the passenger, and we've talked somewhat about the airlines as well. And then the other thing that has entered the room for conversation is energy efficiencies, sustainability, resilience. How much focus does Heathrow and Vanderlande put into what they're bringing forward in solutions to combat all of those things as well?
Well, I mean, for baggage, we've been an electrified fleet for a long time. Now, that doesn't mean that we aren't focused on reducing our energy consumption, but we really don't have diesel tractors running around, haven't for quite some time, before me. I suppose from a simplicity point of view, our strive for many, many different reasons, but energy efficiency, our focus has to be on processing first time successfully, so that we're not running bags around a system multiple times just to catch up with a process that didn't quite get it in the first instance. That's a real focus for us. I think I need to give Vanderlande credit for some of the work going on in retrofitting to our existing systems. So we're moving from our current motors in the T3 and the T5 space to an IE5 motor. The energy efficiency of that is massive. But again, we come back to that data conversation. Those motors are also organically providing data back out to us. So it starts to feed the beast of a more efficient maintenance program. It starts to give us that opportunity to really harness an efficient use of people, resources, spares, and all those things. And all of those cascade into a much more effective and sustainable long-term solution to our airport, at least.
I think it's just it's ingrained in everything that we do now. It's almost not a separate conversation. It's part of how you define and design solutions, and how we can take from the new solutions that are being created, how could we take some of that innovation and retrofit it to our system so that we're still benefiting from sustainability. Like Jamie said, the IE5 motors is a great example. What we're doing with our circular economy, how we're building new things, maybe with green steel as an example. Or sustainability is also much more broader than just those kind of those things that we've been talking about, because within the Heathrow 2.0 that we're all signed up for, it's a scorecard, it's a fantastic initiative. We're also looking at what we're doing within the community, what we're doing within schools, how we are onboarding kind of apprenticeships and graduates into the baggage space and the baggage business. So I think when we're talking about sustainability, it's now much broader, and it's just embedded in every conversation that we do, just as much as kind of you would be doing for cybersecurity now as well.
Absolutely. So one issue that plagues you, Jamie, if you had a solution tomorrow that you could apply across all the airports, what would the one area of baggage handling be that you fix tomorrow?
I think I'd come back to autonomy and logistics. That's the one that for us is, alongside better data utilization, autonomy or autonomous logistics is the one thing that will unlock so much capacity for us, so much efficiency, better use of humans, a much safer airport environment overall. I think that's the one that I would be, if you give me a Christmas wish list, Jen, that's the one I'm asking for.
All right. How about you, Sarah?
Oh, and I'm going to be sounding like I'm just copying Jamie now, but I would have said exactly the same thing. I think that's the space that we're in at the moment. It's how can we make it easier for the human? What are we looking in terms of AI, robotics, and how we can harness the data that brings as well to make us even better. So I think really it's the load on the human, the safety element, and the resilience. And Jamie articulated it much, much better than I could. But yeah, it's just that's where I think that we are feeling most pulled towards at the moment. I think overall, baggage actually works pretty well. So I think, we can always kind of look for these great incremental improvements. But I think if you're looking at the biggest thing now, and I think we're seeing it across Europe, and I talk to my colleagues about it as well, that's really where we should be focused. It's on how can we make it better for the workforce that we've got, and how we can encourage others to join us for future careers.
Yeah, we're talking, Jen, about solving the 1.5%.
Right, which
the
is
1%
sounds like
here.
such a small number, but there's a pretty big dollar value that gets assigned to that when you look at baggage globally.
Absolutely.
Break that down
And
to an individual.
as growth hits, that percentage, the success rate that we currently have is at risk.
Absolutely.
So we have to fight to stay at that, to then be able to fight to improve it. I think obviously we get into the space around, do passengers trust our systems? Do passengers trust our processes? Well, the vast majority go through without any impact to their baggage journey. So it is really trying to fight for that small percentage of people. And sometimes it's the most difficult of bags. It's those out of size, out of gauge bags that we have to fight for because they're in those peripheral parts of the operation where it takes an extra person to handle something through 5 extra processes. So those are the bits that we really need to focus on to be excellent at service. But alongside that, we have to accommodate the business demand to grow. The ability for us to give the airlines what they need, which is the space to grow, to be able to do that in a safe and sustainable way, as Sarah said, but also to be able to do it in a way that we aren't inheriting the pain points of the past. That's the big thing for me. In a lot of ways, all of the things that we talk about all the different airports, all the things that I've talked to Sarah about when I first joined Baggage in 2017, those pain points are still there. It's just they go up and down, almost with the weather, shall we say. And fighting to get ourselves away from those pain points and those bits and pieces as we get busier is everything. It's everything to us.
Okay, my last question. 10 years from now, how has baggage changed, or what does our process look like? Does that differ from how the process is today?
Well, I'll let Sarah go first.
It's very kind of you, Jamie. Thank you. I think we could be introducing choice for the customer. So I think, there is remote pickup as an example. And I think that kind of links to sustainability, that then allows people to maybe not drive to the airport, but get public transport. And then we can kind of feed the bags into the system as and when it suits us to make sure that it gets loaded in time. I think it's really just about how we can kind of focus on, like Jamie said, that 1.5%, because we're not satisfied, I think, until we've got every passenger, every bag, every time. And I think we'll be continually driven to do that. So I would imagine in 10 years' time, me and Jamie will still be having probably the same conversations that we had in 2017, in kind of, 2037.
Yeah, I think for me, across the next 10 years, the difference shouldn't be felt by the majority of passengers. There'll be an incremental change in messaging. They'll want to understand the digital journey of their bag, and I think the airlines are already embarked upon that. So I think that's probably the next few years until we get to a point or a level where there isn't much more to give there that adds value. I think where the change will be felt, significantly felt and positively felt, will be in the handler space. I think where we step into either fully automated or semi-automated loading, I think suddenly people will be going home feeling very different. I think weekends will feel different and not so much like recovery.
Right.
I think our productivity levels and our understanding, automating away from hand scanning, automating away from those bits and pieces that are a juggling act of tasks that the handler needs to do in a certain space, and giving them real meaningful tasks. And I think we will see that stuff. Whilst our journey to a fully automated environment is much longer than 10 years, Jen. We don't invest that fast. We don't move that quickly. Mm-hmm. I think you will see significant steps taken in the next 5 to 10 years where the other areas will then push to catch up. So I think the passenger, I think we should see the trust levels improve, but that's just through a more reliable performance as opposed to anything that fundamentally changes it. But for the handler, that world should feel really different in 10 years.
That's great. Well, a huge thank you to Jamie from Heathrow Airport and Sara from Vanderlande. This conversation really highlighted how baggage is no longer just a behind-the-scenes operation. It's becoming smarter, more connected, more predictive, and far more central to the passenger experience than most people realize. From innovation and operational resilience to the future vision for baggage at Heathrow, there was a lot to take away from this episode today. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe, follow, and share the episode. And as always, thank you for listening to the BagFather.